All right. So, as usual, really good observations, good questions. You guys are such good theologians. I wish you were the next generation of pastors and priests and rabbis and imams, right? I really wish it was you. Okay. Anyways, let's go into Corcoran first. If I can reread my ah, um yes. So you think the punishment is too harsh because they were innocent, right? And so here's, so of course I think you're right, right? But here's how I want you to see it, right? I don't think, and we'll see this today, that God is punishing the mere act of taking the fruit. I don't think this is the issue. The issue is who they were before taking the fruit, what led them. It's a state of being that God is trying to transform, right, through the punishment, right? So we're gonna see today that the issue is not, oh, they took the fruit. Who cares, right? The issue is who Eve was before she took the fruit and what God is trying to transform in Eve through the so-called punishment, which I don't think is a punishment, right? I think, and again, this is one interpretation among 1,000. So there are other ways to interpret the text. I'm offering this particular layer, right? Which you might disagree, and that's fine. And your interpretation also, if you have a different interpretation, that's fine too. But I'm gonna work with a particular line of interpretation, which I think is interesting, and you can think about like or not, right? But what I'm thinking is, remember, God is working with humanity. I think he instigated this. You're right in a way, Epstein, when you say God is setting them up for, but I don't think it's failure. I think it's setting them up for movement, right? So he puts the tree in the middle, already said this is instigating, right? So then, of course, they take the fruit. And I believe the expulsion from Eden is not so much a punishment as I think Rivera is getting it very well in you understood, right? You say it well. I'm going to quote you, Rivera. Therefore, the curses of Genesis 3:16-19 are for the purpose of perfecting man and woman as king and warrior queen, right? So that's what I'm going to show. I want to show that, right? That what is happening in this so-called curse is actually something profoundly redemptive, right? This is the take I'm gonna have here in the class, right? So does that begin to sort of calm you down, Corcoran? Okay, so you'll see where I'm headed, but yes, you'll hear more. Okay, by the way, they have the same, some of you are saying the woman was punished more than the man, some of you are saying the man was punished more. It's in the Hebrew text, it's the same word, etzev, pain. Let me write it on the board so you can learn another Hebrew word. Write it with the inexistent chalk. No chalk, no light. This is great. This is public university. All right, deal with it. It's write it however you want. E-Z-E-V. It's is a Hebrew word for pain. Same word is used for Eve when it says, I will multiply your pain. And by the way, it's the same word translated in the text as toil. I don't know why they translate it differently. It's the same word, right? So they both have pain, right? So I believe in the text there is an equal measure, right, that is handed out to both, because both, and we will see why, are equally guilty. This is not something that the traditional interpretation, Eve is guilty. In this text, both are guilty equally, and you can see that in the symmetry of the so-called curse, right? Snake, Eve, Adam, all have the same amount, right? So, okay. This is something that I won't point out today, but I'm going to say right now, Corcoran, we don't know this, we don't notice this, but the text seems to imply that they were together when the snake was talking. Because in the text, oh my God, what are those balloons? Balloons are popping up on my screen in the middle of this is so weird. Okay, okay, sorry. Super weird. Okay, we don't know this. We don't pay attention to this small detail, but they were actually together. The text at least seemed to apply. They were together when the snake started to talk to Eve. Why? Because right after she takes the fruit, she gives it to the man, and it says in the text who was with her. So what is it? She takes the fruit and then runs around looking for the man. No, he seems to be immediately already there. He seems to have been there all along, but in his characteristic silence. It's very interesting. The word is in the Hebrew. with her, right? She gives it to not she just gives it to the man at a later, who was with her. So there, you can imply from that perhaps the man was there. Everything is speculative, right? But you can imply from that perhaps the man was there all along, and so they were both listening to this. And the man, in a way, chose to remain silent, right? And some of you bring that out, like, who was it that said, why didn't, this was Rivera, why didn't the man fight for his, why was he not more aggressive, intervening? Why is he just sitting there, right, passively? And it's true, Adam is very passive until the end, where he really, I think, rises to the occasion in a very powerful way. So Adam, in a way, is very passive, but then at the end, there is kind of a real turnaround for Adam. We're going to see that. Okay, so that's for Corcoran. Suresh, why is wisdom forbidden? We're going to talk about that, right? You're like, why is it so bad that they're looking for wisdom? It's true. Why, right? This is a good thing. What's God's problem, right? We're going to look at that specifically today. Kaplan, you notice the serpent in both Inanna and here, and they actually have very similar meaning, actually. The serpent represents the creature of chaos. We're going to talk about that. The threat to the cosmic order. And we'll talk about this today. You notice very rightly that Eve is given a name at a weird time, right? I mean, it's a really dark time. Now is really not the time to start giving names and celebrating birthdays, right? Maybe the balloons here. So you notice the odd timing, and actually it's a very important timing. We're going to look at that too today. Oh my God, I wish I had 20 hours with you guys. I'm suffering because I'm anticipating. Okay, maybe it will happen. All right. Adam, yes, you say, what's the big deal with Adam? If he was there the whole time, yes, there's a big deal, right? It's an issue because he was present. Well, what is he doing, right? Come in. Okay, so right, so we have even though he didn't take the fruit, he was if he was present, then listen, it's like you're not what is it when they say if you don't intervene, it's like if a silence is what is it? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, right? Okay, Michelle. Yes, you point out rightly, where are you? You point out rightly the connection between Eve and wisdom, same as the tradition in Inanna text, right? You're noticing the connections. And Epstein, you notice it's very interesting. You got it. You got the ending, which we're going to talk about with why Adam chooses that moment to name Eve. And you really got it in your paper. So I'm just holding, you're going to come up later. And then why this, so you're saying they're setting up, God is setting them up for failure. My argument is God is setting them up for progress, right? My understanding of the text is that Adam and Eve are not that great. This is not a movement from perfection to imperfection. Before they even take the fruit, if you look at the characters, we're going to do so today, they're not that great, right? So in a way, it's not, I don't think personally it's a movement from perfection to imperfection as it is a movement from immaturity to maturity, infancy to adulthood, right? There is actually the word sin is not present in this passage. I want to be very clear. The first time you have the word for sin is in Genesis 4 when Cain kills Abel. You don't have sin here. It's something else going on. This is not about transgression or disobedience or people sinning against God and God punishing their sin. We are not in that context. We are in a context of a God trying to instigate the growth of his children or move them in, through. It's a difficult process. It's an educational, pedagogical process where God is moving, pushing, weaning his children from infancy to adulthood. You follow me? Are you seeing that, Quran? Kind of what I'm saying? This is not about sin transgression. It's about God trying to wean his children, trying to bring them to adulthood, pushing them, instigating, provoking them so they come out of this state of infancy, right? Are you following me so far? Kind of? Okay, great. Rivera? Yes, good observation. Adam, is he the equivalent of Gilgamesh or Utu in the Inanna epic? And you're right, Adam is completely, he's not fulfilling his, the man is supposed to help the woman with her bed and her throne, but he's just standing there, right? We'll see, however, Adam is going to be very much redeemed in all of our eyes at the end of the story. So he's going to do this, but he's not yet doing it. Remember, they're evolving, right? They're not, they're still very immature. Who is Gilgamesh? God. We're going to see that it is God who cuts Eve open, right? It does the work of Gilgamesh in the story. Okay. All right, let's get into the text. Any last comments before I rush us through?
Should I throw in a question?
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, we haven't heard you.
So why is eating from the tree of life bad if we could just restore them to the immortal state they were in before getting cursed with death?
Again, God is not interested in immortality, he's interested in growth, right? So I think he's thinking for the best. I'm sensing that in the text, for God, the best medium for growth is not immortality. It's this finite state we're in, right? God is in a way really pushing us out of the garden. He's the one who did it. There's good reason, right? He's putting us now in a state where perhaps we're going to evolve and grow. We don't see it like that, right? We tend to think, we sinned. Number one, false, right? And God pushed us out from good to bad, false, right? This is not, there's no good or bad here. This is state of infancy to state, this is how I'm seeing it, right? State of infancy to state of adulthood. So immortality is not serving God's purpose here. You see what I'm saying? He's not interested in mortality. Yes.
Is the serpent really speaking, or is this something, or is this something that is being put into Eve's head by God, or is she developing her own thoughts?
So you can say both. You can say, the biblical text tends to want to be perceived as historical in general, right? It's in
But
general.
the other talking animal that I could
Is
think of
the donkey.
is
Yes,
the ant,
that's possible.
and the ant's mouth is opened by God.
True. So we don't know. Obviously, I'm not going to. But we know that the text in general, the Hebrew text,
But does it come from something else where there's animals that speak to humans?
like in the Chronicles of Narnia. I've always
Harry
wanted.
Potter, the snake.
Yes. So we don't know, right?
From other
What matters is the snake is a creature of chaos. No, it doesn't matter what snake is saying. The presence of the snake already indicating we're in trouble, right? Or maybe not so much in trouble. Maybe it's the beginning of something interesting, right? Okay, so great, thanks. All right, let's go into the text. We're gonna start with a woman. Again, I want to reiterate what I'm trying to do here. For centuries, woman has been seen. I just want to give you a quick history of interpretation, right? If you look, both Jewish and Christian interpreters, it's so weird. They disagree on everything except this. It is very, very uncanny, right? To read the Jewish interpretations and the Christian interpretations of this text. They agree. The woman is the downfall of man. The woman, in a way, is immoral. There's an immorality inherent to the woman, and therefore it is normal that she should be dominated by the man. She needs to be controlled, right? Because she is inherently immoral. Both Jewish and so how do they agree? My understanding of the reason why both the Jewish and Christians are unanimous is that Jewish interpretation and Christian interpretation arose out of the same context. Anybody know what is the cultural context of most of the Talmud and of the Christian, of course, church fathers? What is the cultural context they're emerging from? What is the empire at the time where you have Rome, and the culture is?
Greek.
Yeah, because Rome doesn't have culture. All they do is destroy, right? It's the Greeks that have the culture, right? So they're both emerging from a Hellenistic context. And I told you already last time in the class what the Greeks think about the woman, right? So I believe this interpretation, both of Jews and Christians, right, has been in a way tainted by the Greek worldview. And so and is not based on the biblical worldview, because we know from Genesis 2, that is the biblical worldview of woman. The woman is, on the contrary, the uplifting of man. She's not the downfall of man. Right before, the chapter before, describes the woman as the Ezer Kenegdo. She lifts up the man. How now she's going to be the one, right? So this interpretation is foreign to the text. The interpretation of woman as immoral, as bringing the man down, needing to be controlled, is, in my view, completely foreign to the text, right? It's a Greek import, right? So what we need to do to get to the true meaning of the text is to go back to two things: the ancient Near Eastern backdrop, because that's the actual backdrop of the text, right? Cultural backdrop, and other texts in the Hebrew Bible, right? Which we're going to focus here on the ancient Near Eastern backdrop. Okay, any questions so far? Everybody with me? Okay, all right, let's go into the tree. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about this tree. So we know a little bit already that the tree is from Inanna, right? The literature of Inanna, that the tree is associated with wisdom and is associated with the goddess, right? In fact, in the story of Inanna, remember the tree represents Inanna's budding womanhood, right? Inanna coming into herself. That's the tree. So there's in the Inanna text, there's an identification between the woman and the tree, right? So in ancient Near East, the tree represents the goddess of wisdom, right? And if you look at ancient Near Eastern iconography, so not no paintings, the sculptures and so forth, and you will see it's very interesting. You will see sometimes a lot of these pictures depict a king, and next to the king a tree, right? Anybody want to interpret what that means? That there is a king, and next to the king always there is a tree. Based on what we studied with Inanna, what is this telling us about the king? Through? Exactly, right? If the king is there with the tree, means there is a connection between the king and the tree, and it brings us back to what we talked about with Inanna. The king is empowered to reign through the goddess, right? So this is kind of, okay, so we have to be aware of this when we see this tree, right? Which incidentally is the tree of wisdom. We translate tree of good and evil, and we're like, oh, is it about determining good? It's not. Good and evil, write this word down, is a merism. merism, merism, meaning it's a literary device to show that it's actually the tree of the knowledge of everything, right? Like when there's a good example in the New Testament when Jesus says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. Boom, I am everything. It's basically what he's saying. I'm at the beginning and the end, meaning I'm here all the time, right? So same thing here, yes. Yeah, M-E-R-I, Mary, S-M, merism. Okay, so meaning when you have usually in the Hebrew way of speaking, when you say, I am the beginning and the end, for example, basically what you're saying, I'm everything in between, right? So when they say good and evil, it's basically saying is a tree of knowledge of everything, which we can then identify with the tree of wisdom, right? So we're talking here about a tree of wisdom. Now, here's the weird thing about this tree, right? This tree is forbidden. It's not the case with Inanna, right? This is a new twist in the stories. I want to stop on this. Why is wisdom forbidden? What's the point here of God? What's he trying to teach them? What is the meaning of wisdom? What is God trying to teach them by making the tree of wisdom forbidden? Let's stop on that and talk a little bit. Yes, Epstein.
I think it would be a metaphor to show that wisdom is not taken, rather it's earned through experience.
Ah, you're on my wavelength today. See, I know it's so rare. Let's enjoy this moment. So, yes, let me just summarize what he said, right? Wisdom is not up for grabs. Wisdom cannot be taken. It cannot be conquered. We're going to see this over and over again in the book of Proverbs, in the book of Ecclesiastes. We're going to see this idea that wisdom is not taken, it is received, right? That's the first thing. So to take is already the wrong gesture when it comes to wisdom, right? To think you can just grab onto wisdom. In other words, to think that you can, through your own efforts, become wise, right? That's the idea here, right? You can't just through your own efforts. In other words, we're with Socrates here. When Socrates says, I know that I don't know, he's showing I don't have it. I can't find it. I can't make it happen. I don't have it. It comes to me, right? Remember, Socrates was possessed, right? By a spirit who would give him the wisdom, right? A muse. So we have this notion that you cannot strive by yourself for wisdom. You can only be open and receptive to what? We're going to see to what in a second. So very good, Epstein. Yes, Deborah.
Also that all wisdom belongs to God and not to humans. That humans cannot become all-knowing as gods and be godlike.
So why then put that in their face? What's he doing? Is he being, what's he doing? Is he being sadistic? Haha, wisdom, woo, can't have it. Right? What is he doing? What's his point? By making wisdom, Epstein is on the right track, I think. Really, he's on the right track. Follow him.
Well, it's like God, it doesn't mean that you can't acquire
Okay, now
wisdom
you're
over
you're getting
time,
there.
but it's
Acquire is
not,
the wrong word, by the way.
well, it's not acquire, but
Yes.
develop a knowledge,
Still wrong verb.
receive.
Okay, there you go.
And,
So that it means we can receive, but
but it's
what's the
not,
condition?
it's your mission is to learn how to receive.
Okay, and now we're on the right track.
And to, it's experience.
Okay, good, good, good.
So it's not something that can just automatically belong to you.
Okay, exactly, right? You can't just, okay, very good. Rivera and then Michelle? Yes, Rivera.
He places a tree in front of him. Maybe there's an appeal to the authority, like I possess this wisdom, just trust in me and I'll be able to.
Okay, so yeah, there's definitely this. And by the way, the word giving, like I said before, is a key word, and God gives the fruits. God is the one giving the fruits throughout the story. So we can expect, you're right, when he's putting a tree there, we have to wait until he gives that fruit, right? So very nicely put, right? Good sensitivity to the text. God has already, right? I want to, I have just a stupid phone for the text today, so I can't go fast enough. But if you go back to Genesis 1, it says, God says, I have given you every herb, every fruit, right? I have given. So when we see this tree and it's withdrawn, if we have a sense of who God is, we know that that's okay. He will give it, but I can't take it, right? You cannot take. God can only give. You cannot take. So we're on the right track. What else? What else? How is limitation? Because this is what God is introducing in the garden, right? For the first time, see, they had access to everything, but here, boom, limitation, right? What is the lesson here of what can they learn through why is it necessary that there is one thing that is forbidden, that there is an element of limitation in the garden? What would happen if they had no limits, just going around, no limits? What kind of people would they become? What kind of people do we become when we have no limits? Think about it. Why is God introducing limitation in this paradise? What's the lesson? Yes.
I think it also like teaches humility in a sense, because like you don't just become dominant over everything. You understand that some things aren't for you. Like I feel like yeah.
Good. Ecclesiastes will continue on that in that direction. Limitation means I'm not God, I'm human, right? This is already a good lesson, but there's more. What happens? In other words, let's think very, very carefully. What would happen if, for example, in your life, you had some powers and you could do whatever you wanted? What would be missing in your life?
Meaning.
Almost. In other words,
Development program.
yes, for sure. What else? Who said? What? What?
Struggle.
Oh, that's nice. I hadn't thought of that. That's true. Mhm. You're on the right track. So what happens? So suppose you're here, right? You're here. You have power to manipulate anybody, right? You can do whatever you want. You want this money, you take it. You want this person, you take it. You want this grade, you take it. You have everything, but you're missing one thing. What is it?
Child.
True, but what are you missing that's at the origin of the challenge? In other words, a person who can get anything they want, what's missing in their psyche? What are they incapable of doing and therefore experiencing? Yes, I have to ask it differently. Okay. Imagine, no, let me ask it differently. If we have no limitation, meaning whatever we want can happen, are you a fun person to be around if you always expect your will and yourself to not be limited? What kind of person do you end up being
Sure.
in your relationships? What kind of, you're in a huh? Okay, exactly, right? If you're a person who can take anything they want and is used to having what they want, in a relationship, you'll be an absolute disaster because the relationship is what the other person also wants, right? But if you always want to get what you want, there's no room for the other person. Do you follow me? If there's no limitation or the ability to limit yourself, there is no space created for another to sit in your life. You see what I'm saying? To be in your life. Because if you're always the one deciding, doing, having all power over everything, then there is actually no room for another to also have power. Do you follow what I'm saying? So what I'm suggesting is that the introduction of limitation in the garden has an ethical purpose. It has the purpose to teach the person, here I am limited, here I cannot do everything. And at that moment, a space is opened up for there to be a coexisting human being. Do you follow? In other words, you learn to, remember, they're both supposed to reign, right? They're both supposed to rule the world. The moment you're limited, you realize I'm not the only one ruling this world. There's another agent who is also ruling next to me and also has a will and agency and desires and power and wanting this and wanting that, and thereby limiting me. Do you follow? The essence of intimacy and relationships is limitation. You cannot be limited. You cannot be in a relationship, period. There, I taught you the basics, basics, ABCs of relationship. So in other words, it seems to me, this is just one interpretation among many. I like what you guys were saying, the challenge element and so forth. This is interesting. But one of the elements that God is teaching the couple by introducing this limitation is that until here you can go and not any further. I am teaching you that you have to rein yourself in. And as you learn to rein yourself in, I am actually preparing you to be in relationship. Period. That's what's one of the things going on. Let me say it again, right? God is teaching them to rein themselves in front of the tree. It looks pointless. But actually, it's like, have you seen Karate Kid? Anybody? Am I too old? Okay, great. Okay, which one? Oh, great. Okay, it's like a billion. Okay, the very, very first one. You know, when he goes, he makes him like, clean the windows. And he's like, what the hell? Why am I doing this? Right? And then later, then he attacks him and right? He's like, I can't do it, but whatever. So this is the same thing. God is stupidly putting them in front of a tree who nobody cares about the tree or the fruit. But what God cares about is, are you able to rein yourself in? Are you able to bring yourself? Are you able to control yourself? Are you able to, limit yourself? Why? Because later, this is going to be fundamental. If you want to be a couple, you need to know this skill, just like this, right? Are you following? So that's one way to read it. There are many ways to read it, but that's one. But it will be very fruitful, this way of reading, when we get to the rest of the text. That's why I'm using it. Okay, so are we clear why the tree is there? At least for now. One of the reasons why the tree is there. Okay. Now, back to wisdom. Why is the tree of wisdom? Simply because of this. Wisdom in the Hebrew context is relational. You cannot find wisdom in solitude. Wisdom is always relational. If you cannot relate, you can never be wise. Okay, this is why, let's see if you remember, the organ of wisdom is what in the human body? Thank you, the ear. Why? The ear, so you listen, right? It's not the mouth, it's not even the eyes, like the Greeks are saying, right? It's the ear. Your capacity to relate to other people, to listen to them and receive them, is what will make you wise, basically. And so it makes sense that the tree of wisdom should first be experienced as limitation, because a limitation is the pedagogy of relationship, right? If you cannot relate, you cannot be wise. Have I lost you? Are you still with me? You see my brain, the dark corridors of my brain on this text, right? Okay. So do you see how wisdom is really, how it makes sense that the tree of wisdom is forbidden, because wisdom is supposed to be relational, and you can't be relational if you're not forbidden, if you're not limited. Therefore, it's teaching them actually wisdom. Actually, by not eating the fruit, they're becoming wise. Boom. How about that? As they're refraining from eating the fruit, they're entering the discipline of wisdom, right? Are you all with me, everybody? Everybody? Okay, great. Now, let's get to of course, now let's zoom in on the woman, right? Remember, she's the one who wants to be wise, right? She wants to be wise. And sadly, of course, she fails the test, right? She's not sinning, right? I want to be very clear. She's not sinning. She just fails the test that God put there. In a way, she's seeking wisdom, and she ruins all her chances of getting the wisdom by crossing that line, right? Because at that moment she loses. What does she lose as she crosses the line and takes the fruit? What's the first thing she loses? Not gaining, she's losing. Every step towards that tree, she's losing. What's the first thing she loses as she crosses the line to take the fruit? See if you. Well, what's the first thing she lost? The obvious.
Limits.
Exactly. First of all, she loses the ability to limit herself. Therefore, what has she lost?
Relationship.
Exactly. And we see that so vividly in the text. This man and this woman have no relationship. Do you notice they don't talk to each other? Did you notice that? There's not a word exchange between them. Eve is talking to the serpent, God is talking to the man. Between them, there is no dialogue. This is a couple who cannot relate, right? They don't know how to relate. Do you see how they're not that great? Even before the tree, they're not that great. She's in her kind of, bubble, trying to gain everything rule the world by herself. Basically, that's what the gesture means. I'm taking the fruit so I can be everything. But by taking the fruit, she loses precisely the conditions of possibility of ruling, which is wisdom, right? She transgresses the limit and all at the same time loses her relationship, not only with God, but with her husband, right? There is no relationship between them. This is a woman who is entirely, in a way, narcissistic, right? She is absolutely unaware of the presence of another. And guess who's going to be just like her in the following chapter?
Adam.
No, Adam is very relational.
Right.
Cain, same, spit an image of his mother, right? Do you notice how this woman is entirely wrapped up in herself? At not one moment does she turn around and talk to the man and say, what do you think? Right? What do you think we should do? Is this a good idea? Have you heard the serpent? Should we? She's not really, the text emphasizes they're together. Why doesn't she have at one point? Because she's completely unaware of this man. He's aware of her, but she's unaware of him. Yeah.
At the same time, like the onus, like that kind of accusation is stronger against Adam though, because he actually asked for her to be there, and then when she is there, he doesn't say anything to her. And I brought up earlier that he does say something, but I was corrected. He says that thing to God, not to her, when he says, "Oh, this is flesh of my flesh,
Exactly.
bone of my bone."
Yeah, although we can notice, by the way, thank you for reminding me, Adam is much more relational. He sees her, and it's true he's talking to God, but he is really, in a way, realizing, as she is arriving, I am becoming, I have now become a man, right? He becomes Ish, man, when she appears, Isha, right? Woman. So there is a strong relationality in Adam. Adam is extremely relational.
I would actually disagree and say that and say no, because when he says, "Flesh, you are the flesh of my flesh, the bone of my bone,"
Oh.
he's not saying you are another. You are an extension of me.
Good point.
So
Good point.
That hasn't limited himself yet.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep your point. Your point works. He's also saying you're just an extension of me. But I want to also say, by saying flesh of my flesh, she shall be called Isha, because out of Ish, there is a moment where he emerges as a man at the contact of the woman. You see what I mean? He at least, so there's kind of a little bit of both. It's hard to think of them together. So but I agree with you. There's also that. Yeah.
Like, I have a question. So if Eve is like looking for control and power, and why does she also give Adam the food to eat? Like it kind of seems like she wants to share that power with him.
Watch, it's not sharing. She gave the fruit. What is the verb? Natan. Same verb. Who gives the fruits around here? Normally? God. What is she doing now, giving the fruit? You see the higher, deeper meaning of that action? What is she doing? She's taking this prerogative that was God's, and now she's God. Here, take that, right? So the giving of the fruit has nothing to do with sharing. I would argue. You can also argue, there's so many ways to read this, right? But I would argue she's not sharing. She's taking the place of God. She's now ruling the universe by herself, right? And she's now doing the bestowing. Oh, we have a question from our auditor. Go ahead.
How often do you think there is a little bit of paradox in this kind of discussion, as you say, it could be selfish, but it can also make you unselfish. Because, like, the Christ tells love your neighbor as yourself. Ironically, in loving the neighbor as yourself, it makes you self-sacrificial.
Nice.
Putting limits on selfishness, which is like paradox.
Nice.
About that. God says that in churches that when it says love the neighbor as yourself, it says precisely that this is what makes you love the neighbor properly.
So you need both the self. So Adam, and on the one hand, he's recognizing himself, but on the other hand, he is deeply aware of the woman, right? Do you hear her saying flesh of my flesh, bone? She is mute. She does, there's no moment where she even sees this guy, right? At least he sees her. It's extension, but at least you see what I mean? So there's still, for me, even though Adam does really seem very passive and bland, he's not. There's something deeply sensitive about Adam that I really love, right? Adam is capable of love in a way that Eve isn't yet. Do you follow? Do you see how she's not about love. She's about power. This man, on the other hand, might even be out of love that he was quiet. He was like, oh, damn, I'm going to lose this woman, right? Let me go along with this woman in case, right? So there's something in this man, I think, that is poignant, right? There is an element of sensibility in this man that I don't sense in the woman. Do you follow me? Are you seeing that? No.
He throws her under the bus almost
Yeah. He does. He's
You can't say he's compassionate and then all
That's
of a sudden,
true.
second things go south. He's like, no, it's all her fault.
no, you have a point. You have a point. This was not his most glorious moment, right? But you'll see, he'll redeem himself. We will redeem him.
She acting as the role of the goddess.
What?
She's acting in the role of the goddess.
This is absolutely the context. She's rising to the level of this is very normal in the context. She's aware that she can rise up, right? She's tempted. This is the Hebrew temptation, right? For godlikeness, right? She's in a way trying to become this goddess, right? And she's going to be deeply cut open by God, right? For for doing that. So are you at least seeing? I want you to sense the psychology of the two characters, right? And to see where Eve is lacking before she even takes the fruit. There's something deeply troubling about Eve. Are you seeing what I'm saying about Eve? Corcoran, your face. Tell me, what is your face saying? Nothing? Okay. Nothing. Okay. Epstein.
First of all, she's already a semi-goddess already. So to say that she's trying to become more of a goddess, that doesn't really ring true to me because she's already a goddess. She already controls the rest of the creatures on the earth. Is there anything really more what more does she want?
I'll tell you, she wants to rule alone. That's what I'm sensing in Eve.
I don't
She
see it.
offers the fruit to Adam as well, so. if
Again,
she
remember,
wants to alone,
this is a position of superiority, right? The
"Oh, I
Natan.
give this to you."
Yeah, let me explain. When you have this verb Natan, give, which is only ascribed to God, right? The text is saying something, right? And when she now takes this prerogative of, I'm going to now be the one who gives food around here, what is she saying other than, I am your God? I mean, we can also, I agree, we could see the text completely differently, but what I'm seeing there is she's in a way taking up the prerogative of God. She is rising to the level of the goddess, right? This is, okay. Are you at least with me so far? Okay, because wait for it. All right, so now this is the issue. So of course, when God steps in, I don't think it is to punish her. Because to be honest, the desire to be goddess, the desire to be wise, the desire to rule, it's not a sin. Text doesn't talk about it as a sin. It's just an urge, right? Okay, God steps in and watch what he does. First thing he does is what Gilgamesh did to Inanna. He cuts her open. Cool. Two ways. What's the first cut she receives? If you remember. First cut. First wound. He wounds her. He really wounds her. What's the first wound she gets in Genesis 3:16? Yeah.
By saying that you're gonna be like a servant to your husband,
Even before, it just adds on.
bearing children.
Bearing children. This is a cutting, right? Now you will be opened, right? You will be cut open through this childbirth process, right? And the second cut is the cut where she is now desiring her husband. That's cut. Anybody ever desire someone? Most painful thing, ruins your life. Whole life is finished, right? We're having a good day, you see them, blah, right? Cut, right? He cuts her open twice, ta, right? And at that moment, but he cuts her open, there is a direction of the cut. Where does he cut her open to? What opens up through this cut? I guess that's the question. What are the two dimensions that open up through this cut?
Life.
More specifically, life of who? Yes, relationship, child, husband. He cuts her open so that she can become relational. He introduces the cut necessary for there to be love, right? The cut that Adam already had. That's why he loves. He was, remember, he was cut open. Bah! Woman, right? Now she has to be cut open. Something has to be wounded for her to be able to love in a normal way. And by the way, this is if you go very deep. Until you've suffered, you can't love. That's why love often connected to suffering. That's why love, I was joking with a friend of mine, right? Love is heartbreak. Heartbreak in many ways. Your heart breaks open, right? Doesn't have to be in a painful way. So this is what's happening. God is breaking her, cutting her open, opening her up to relationship. What is he giving her through that? That she had lost through crossing the limit.
The ability to love.
Almost,
Ability to create.
almost. What was she wanting all along? No, no, no,
It's eternal life.
no, no, no.
But
You
for
said it, you
children,
said
you
it.
have eternal.
Yeah, yeah, no, I know, it's that too, but there's, I'm looking at that one, say it. Wisdom. This is wisdom. The ability to relate. He cuts her open, makes it possible for her to relate, right? And at that moment, the possibility of wisdom that she had lost emerges. Do you see how this is not a curse? This is a blessing? For Corinth, are you with me? Is this okay? Are you, I mean, do you agree? Because you're the feminist of the class, so I have to check with you.
Um, well, I do think that's interesting that what you mentioned before about like him giving her this desire for the man, because it kind of relates to what you said previously, that she doesn't really care about his existence.
Exactly.
Like, so the implication is that she had no desire for him before, but
Exactly.
now she will, and she will be able to understand him. So I think that is.
That's going somewhere. Okay. Yes. Good. 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 Who challenge me, please? I'm testing these ideas with you. You're my guinea pigs, so I'm waiting for challenge or anything that you think could be clarified. You're kind of seeing where I'm headed. Of course, the difficulty will be now this rule, right? Which we'll talk about in a bit. But anybody else?
I'm still kind of debating whether or not I think this is a sin or not, eating from the apple in the first place. Like, just because it's a sin doesn't mean it has to be.
It's not a sin. There's no word for sin here, right? Sin. The word was it tiva? Somebody help me? No, ta'at. Sorry, ta'at. The word ta'at, right? This is, I don't have my text. The word sin, ta'at, is coming only in chapter 4. This whole chapter 1 to 3, there's not single mention of this is not sinning. This is a human beings evolving. Rivera.
There's no mention of sin because in essence, this is the first sin. There's no precedent.
This is not even a sin.
No, but like theologically speaking, like how Christianity goes, like, the doctrine of the original sin.
It's a problem.
Yeah, like you can't really say like God can't introduce the notion of sin before man has begun to sin at all. Like
That's true. So you're saying before Genesis 3, there is no sin. I'm saying in Genesis 3, there is no sin. That's this whole idea of the original sin, unfounded, doesn't exist in the text. The word, you guys are resistant. It's hard for you to see this because we've been drilled this idea. They sinned, she sinned, there's no sin. This is not sin and transgression. This is something else. This is growth, maturity, weaning. This is God working with the couples.
Can it be both at the same time?
The word is not there. That's what I'm saying. The word for sin is not there, simply not there.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with it being both at the same time. That you can have growth and this beauty that comes from doing bad things, but it doesn't change the fact that what you did was still bad.
Yes, we can say they disobeyed,
Mhm.
but we can't say they sinned. Does that help? So for example, a child disobeys, touches the stove. Is that a sin? Sin is when the child hits another child, right? That's a sin, right? But you see what I'm saying? This is the equivalent of the child touching the stove. Is this child sinning? It's just disobeying. It's different.
I would say yes, but the child is sinning
You
because
see-
I have a very general view of sin.
You do, yes.
It's something that is bad, something that is bad or causes you to be hurt, causes other people to be hurt. And so objectively speak, like the child is maybe not at fault. It's not this moral wrong, but
That's what I
objectively
mean. It's
speaking,
not
the
moral.
child is now hurt and worse than they were before.
You answered your same thing. There's nothing moral here. Moral is Cain killing Abel. This is not a moral situation. You see what I'm saying? At least based on the text vocabulary.
I'll get that.
I know, because we've been taught for so long, we can't see anything else, right? Okay, let's continue. Now, this is the main thing I wanted to say about the woman. And oh God, why don't I? Well, maybe I have 20 minutes. Shall we continue with the man? Okay, let's just walk on water. Okay, do this. All right. So at least we see that in a way, this is very important. We see that her problem is not the, I want to summarize. Her problem is not taking the fruit. Her problem is this inability to relate, this solitude, this solipsistic position, the way that she is unaware of the other, right? This is the main issue. And God, in a way, by cutting her open through childbirth and desire, is in a way reestablishing the ability to relate. And in that sense, giving her back the wisdom she longed for. Because remember, the wisdom is relational. You become wise through relationships, like you were saying, through experience, right? As you experience childbirth and children and husband and other people, the more you are engaged in relationships, the wiser you become in the Hebrew context, right? It's a relational skill, right? It's a relational virtue. So you see how beautifully God gives her back what she was seeking, right? Now, let's look at the man. What of Adam, right? So let's go back to what to the destiny of man. So woman, she had a kind of a relational destiny to be the uplifting of man. She messed up. Now man also in a way messes up. So hear me out on this one. So this idea of, so I researched it a little bit. This idea of a garden and man put in the garden to guard the garden and so forth. This is not about man being a kind of, you know, nature freak, right? This is not about that. In ancient Mesopotamia, the garden and the gardener were metaphors for royalty. The king was compared to a gardener, and the garden was compared to the cosmos. So these in the ancient Near East, when you have a man in a garden, supposed to be guarding the garden, these are metaphors very well known to describe a king who is in charge of a kingdom. Okay, so when Adam is placed in the garden and given the duty to guard and protect the garden, he is actually being, this is a scene of enthronization. God is making him king. Now, when you read the text, and check at home because I didn't bring my Bible. This is chapter 2, verse 15. Check at home, or if someone can read it if you have it. Watch the command that occurs right after God enthrones Adam, which is, by the way, still a hermaphrodite, right? Is that what it is? Androgynous, sorry. Still no woman or man, right? It's the human. The human is enthroned, God makes the human guardian and whatever, a servant of the cosmic order. Right after he enthrones the human, what is the command that is given? Can anyone find it on chapter 2, verse 15 and 16? Who has the text? Clearly I don't. Go ahead. Please, the English.
God told the human in the Garden of Eden to till it and to tend it. God said to command to the human, saying, of every tree in the garden you are free to eat, but as for the tree of knowledge of the good and the bad, you must not eat it of it, for as soon as you will eat it, you shall die.
Okay, watch this. They're enthroned to be guardian of the cosmos. Immediately after this enthronization, God tells them limitation. In other words, the condition for guarding the cosmos is nomos, the law. Nomos, N-O-M-O-S, I'm speaking Greek to you. Cosmos is the order of the world, right? Cosmos, you all know this word, right? So cosmos means the ordered world in Greek. Nomos, N-O-M-O-S, means the law. So God is saying the condition of possibility for order, cosmic order, is limitation. This is so profound. I could go on and on about examples of how we're destroying the world because we have lost the sense of our limits. Are you with me on this? 21st century ecologists and right? All of you are aware of this, the way that we are moving beyond our limitations. We are taking too much, right? We are transgressing the limits of what we ought to take in this world. And I'm talking about everything, capitalism, environmental protection, everything that is going wrong, you can trace back to the absence of limitation. Rivera is laughing at me, right? You see what I'm saying? How the key to protecting the cosmic order is limitation. If we know no limitation, we will destroy the world. If we take the resources in the world without limitation, there will be no more resources. If we take everything over here if 1% are taking the whole resources, everybody else will die, right? We are in our situation right now, which is apocalyptic, right? It's the end of times, right? In case you didn't notice, we are in this situation because we have forgotten our limitations. What is enough? We want more than what is enough. And so you see how the limitation is the condition of possibility for cosmic order. And Adam is given precisely this limitation. Are you with me? So what happens when he takes the fruit? What is the consequence? So it's the same thing, right? He's also taking the fruit, but something else happens. So Eve, in a way, loses wisdom because she loses relationality. But what does Adam lose when he takes the fruit? Because he also loses something. What is it that he loses?
Kingship, responsibility. because
Exactly.
As soon as he takes it, he puts the blame on to.
Well, that too.
But-
Yeah, yeah. In addition, look, when he takes the fruit, he has reintroduced chaos into the cosmos. The cosmos now is in danger. Cosmic order is in danger. The world is about to go back into chaos. And that is why God says to him, cursed is the earth because of you, not because of Eve, because that was he had one task, right? That was the task he had. And by transgressing, because he also transgresses, he eats the fruit just like Eve. He has now put the cosmic order into danger and has lost his royalty and his kingship. Now, watch what God does with him. This is so interesting. What's the first thing God tells Adam, of course, you will now go, blah, 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 work the land, you will die. But before that, he says something about Adam in the words that he gives to Eve. So we know that Eve is given desire. We know why. What else is given in that Genesis 3:16? What does the man get? Go to Genesis 3:16b.
Should work by the sweat of your brow.
Before Genesis 3, go to the text. Genesis 3:16b, the second part. The curse of the woman. She gets desire. What does he get?
He rules over her.
He rules. We don't know yet. He gets the rule. So this is interesting. Stay with me. He gets what he just lost. His rule, rulership, reign. Mashal in the Hebrew. Mashal, Mashal, right? We have here her desire for the man, and he shall rule. And then we're going to talk about over who or what. But for now, we know he shall rule. So do you see how he lost his rulership? And God, just like he gives back Eve her wisdom, he gives him back his reign, but there's a condition. And I want us to look at that. But so far, are you all with me? Okay, now, what is the condition? I noticed something interesting about this text. His rulership is in reciprocal relationship with her desire for him, and as a result, he shall rule. Are you with me? So why are they reciprocal? Why is the desire feeding the rule and the rule, right? Why are they interconnected? Why are they interwoven? Now, think about Inanna and you're going to know the answer. It's the same dynamic. We have two elements we have in Inanna. Desire of the woman, rule of the man. When you see them together and you know ancient Near Eastern literature, it should go. Are you exploding? Is your brains exploding with mine? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? I'll say it again. We have the word rule. We have the word sexual desire, right? The word is desire or sexual desire together. And you know ancient Near Eastern literature, something should explode in your head. Is anybody exploding? Yes?
The goddess of prostitutes and sexual fertility, and she also gives power to the kings.
Exactly.
When they become king, they go
Okay.
have sex with one
Okay.
priestesses.
Yes. You're getting very detailed. Okay, you're right. Yes. Do you see what might be happening here? I'm just saying this might be happening here. Are we not witnessing here a sacred marriage between Adam and Eve, where God is redeeming her ability to love, and through her love, he is redeemed in his reign? Let me say that again. Could we not be witnessing here? I'm speculating because I'm the only one saying this in the world right now. So could we not be witnessing here a sacred marriage, the actual moment of marriage, perhaps, between Adam and Eve, where God is awakening love in her, sexual desire in her, right? And through that love, he is receiving his rain. Are you seeing kind of what, am I crazy? Or does this make a little bit of sense? Kind of, it holds? Okay, so now, if that's the case, we have to examine over what he's going to rule now, because that's the issue. Traditional interpretations have said he rules over the woman. Preposition, bach, over her, says. That's how it's translated. And he will rule over, so just be, means over, means many things actually, but one of the meanings is over, and then bach means over her. Okay, so now we have to think. First of all, so traditional interpretation, he rules over her, he's supposed to dominate her because she's, blah, blah, blah. We want to move away from that. So we need to think about it differently. I want to propose the translation, he rules through her. And you can, by the way, but it can translate either over or through, by the means of, right? It doesn't have to be over. If you can, there are many other biblical texts where but means through. So what does it, so if we translate like that, we are totally in line with the sacred marriage, right? If the man in the sacred marriage of Inanna and Dumutzi rules through contact with the goddess, right? He moves, she's the one enabling him, empowering him. He rules through her by the means of the goddess, right? Same thing here. I want to suggest that he is now, and the desire of the woman, this is my translation, the desire of the woman for her man, and he will rule through her. And the rule is not over her, never was meant to be. Let me give you 2 reasons why I don't think it could ever have been over her. Mashal is used to represent cosmic rule. Never rule over one human being. It's a king, it's a very broad concept. The first time you have mashal is about the sun who governs the day. And the sun is also the representation of the king in ancient Sumeria, right? So this governance is a very broad scope. It can never be ascribed to an individual. Second, if Eve is coming to Adam with love, why should he rule over her? She's already his, right? In the palm of his hand. She's not trying to destroy him. She's coming with love, not temptation, like they translated. You see? So that would be the suggestion I have with the translation. And so what we have here, and this is why this text, in my view, is so beautiful. We have a scene of re-enthronization of the man and the woman. But this time, their rule is guaranteed through their relationship. As she turns to the man in love, he is able to rule with wisdom, right? Because she's wisdom, right? So in a way, that is the dynamic, how they are meant to rule together. Now it's not the limitation that makes them king and queen, it's the ability to relate to each other. To the degree that he receives her, he rules. To the degree that she turns to him, she rules. You see what I'm saying? So now in a way, the reign is again reestablished. God in a way re-enthrones them, but this time their power comes from each other. This is so important to understand because every single story we'll see is about that. The man empowering the woman empowering the man, right? To rule or to create something together. So I want us to look at now this is the punchline. Ooh, this is the best moment. This is the best moment. I absolutely love Adam at this point. So we have, let's imagine, okay, my theory is correct, sacred marriage, enthronization, and then Adam receives his slap in the face, right? You're gonna die, you're gonna be dust. Now watch what Adam does with his newly found rulership. What is the first action he does right after God has finished speaking? Look at the last words of God. To dust you will return, for from dust you came. Boom! Like if Epstein was here, he would be like, yeah, see, it's all over. It's all pessimistic, right? So the verdict has been set by God. You'll die. It's over. What's the first thing Adam does with his newly found mashal? Yes. Before he names her, he does something else. Look at the text. This is the punchline. This is the most glorious moment. I'm seeing this. This is like, Adam is just like rising to up.
You shall return to human name.
What?
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me.
No, that's what it's, yeah.
Okay, fine. I can work with that. 2 things are happening here. For she is the mother of life, right? 2 things are happening here. First, towards the woman, we see that of it, but also towards God. What is Adam saying to God when he names his wife the mother of the living? Right after God has said, to dust you will return and you will die forevermore. What's Adam doing to God? Yes.
He was kind of standing up to him.
Yes, blatant contradiction. God has just set the decree, you will die. And Adam's like, no, we will live. It's beautiful. He stands up to God in a magnificent way, contradicts him, straight up overturns the divine decree and says, no, we will live. And you, this woman, who in a way contributed to the death, she will now not be the mother of the dead, she will be the mother of the living. He overturns her destiny and he overturns the divine decree. Do you see who this man has become? This is the most glorious moment in the Hebrew Bible. Are you with me? This man is amazing. I mean, he wasn't that great until that moment. That moment just redeems him forever, generation after generation. He redeems the woman by giving her a new name. You can imagine how Eve felt when everything went down, right? She like, oh my God, what have I done, right? And he comes to her and says, I am now turning over your destiny. You thought you were this, but actually you will be this, the mother of the living, not the mother of death, right? And this is so fascinating to me in a disappointing way, how traditional interpretations have forgotten this move by Adam, right? And continue to make Eve the mother of death, right? The mother of, the one who brought, I mean, read the commentaries, the one who brought death into the world. Adam has overturned this decree 5,000, 6,000 years ago. We follow the biblical calendar, right? He already overturned this and profoundly transformed her destiny into the mother of life. And at that moment, it's the most beautiful moment, right? He gives her this new destiny. He opens up this new path for her, right? Yes.
Why is this necessarily about standing up to God if God gave her the power of childbirth?
Yeah, and even God, again, I think created us to stand up to him, right? God is not offended. He's like, oh, okay, right? We know this, right? The God of the Hebrew Bible is a God who wants human agencies, dying for it, begging for it, right? Very rare. This is a beautiful moment, right? Of human beings standing before God, maybe not standing up to God, but standing before God and overturning the decree in a way that God certainly appreciated, right? Abraham tried to overturn the decree of God. Moses overturned the decree of God, right? These are the great men of history, the ones who overturned the divine decree, right? This is an invitation to us. So that's the story. Was this crazy? Did I take you on a crazy ride? Are you kind of with me, or is this like crazy? How you feel? Does this make sense? Can I publish this? Okay.
Why not?
Good. Why not? Okay, good. Wow, I can't believe it's a miracle. We walked on water. We did it. What time is it? Look at that. Look at that. We're done. We're done, guys. Okay. Yes.
This is already published in a book that I keep telling you to read. You keep not reading it.
Someone
It is scarily uncanny.
stop. Okay, what is the book again?
But you have the book.
I have the book now.
The great partner, the one that I told you to get that you got.
Stay. I'm going to make sure I have the book. Okay, I'm stopping the recording.